I have it written on the board. You know that there are 27 books. Am I right? 27 books in the New Testament. And there are 5 divisions. In other words, the New Testament is divided into 5 parts. Some people say 4. But I like to divide the 21 epistles up into the Pauline epistles and the general epistles. So I say there are 5 divisions in the New Testament. The New Testament is divided into 5 parts. The first division of the New Testament is the Gospels. There are 4 Gospels. The second division is history. There's 1 book of history in the New Testament. The third division is the 13 Pauline epistles. 9 of them written to churches, 4 of them written to individuals. 13 Pauline epistles. Those are letters. Epistle means letters written by the Apostle Paul. The fourth division is the general epistles. All right? They were written to be circulated among the believers, and there are 8 general epistles. There's only 1 book of prophecy in the New Testament, and you all know what book that is, right? The book of Revelation. All right, so 27 books. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 Gospels. Acts, the 1 book of history. The 13 Pauline epistles. Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. And to help you to remember those other epistles, I say General Electric Power Company. Galatians, Ephesians, Colossians, Philippians. Does that help you to remember those? Y'all say General Electric. Y'all say General Electric Power Company. Because if you're like me, as long as I've been in church, I have had problems really just reciting the books of the Bible. Matter of fact, do not ask me to recite the Old Testament books because I might mess them up. And I've been preaching for a while. Okay, so that kind of helps you to remember. The 13 Pauline epistles, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, General Electric Power Company, and then 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Those are the 9 letters that were written to churches, and then the 4 that were written to individuals. 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon. All right? That is the 3rd division, 13 Pauline epistles. All right. All right, the general epistles starts with Hebrews. Even as Paul primarily wrote to the Gentiles, he was the apostle to the Gentiles. Most of those letters were written to primarily Gentile churches, where most of the members were Gentiles. There were some Jews, but primarily these churches were Gentile churches. Now, when you get to the general epistles, most of those letters were written and targeted for a Jewish Christian audience. So that the 8 general epistles starts with what? Y'all help me say Hebrews, James, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. No, yeah, that's right. 1st and 2nd Peter. I'm sorry. 1st and 2nd Peter. Then 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. All right, Jude. Those are the 8 general epistles. And then the final book in the New Testament, which is the book of prophecy, Revelation. Romans, now the book of Romans, in order of structure, not in its chronological order. In other words, Romans is not necessarily the first book that Paul wrote, but it is structured in the New Testament as the first book in order of the 13 Pauline epistles. And it's no coincidence that it is so. Amen. Romans is the longest epistle of all 21 letters that were written. There are how many chapters in the book of Romans? Talk to me, students. Y'all been studying, haven't you? 16 chapters. Amen. It's the longest epistle of the 21 epistles. 16 chapters. How many verses? 27 verses. The only other epistle that is as long as Romans is 1 Corinthians. It is 16 chapters in 1 Corinthians, but only 24 verses. Amen. Let me give you some background for the book of Romans. All right? I want to make sure you have your background. The author, and if Evangelist Robinson will read chapter 1, verse 1, Paul identifies himself as the author. What does chapter 1, verse 1 say? What does it say? All right. Mm-hmm. Called to be an apostle. Separated unto the gospel of God. Y'all see that? Chapter 1, verse 1. Paul identifies himself as the author. To whom was the book of Romans written? That information would be right here in the introduction. All right? Verse 7. Paul, he identifies who he is writing to. Could you read that for me, Evangelist? Verse 7. To all that be in Rome, beloved of God, called to be saints. So the saints in the city of Rome, all right? He wrote this letter to the saints in Rome in AD 56 toward the end of his third missionary journey. AD 56. Where did he write it from? He wrote it from the city of Corinth. And the reason why we know that, because the evidence is in the book. If you would turn to Romans, the 16th chapter, Paul begins to commend Phoebe, or recommend Phoebe, to the Roman believers. And Phoebe was a Christian worker in the church at Corinth. He also mentions Aquila and Priscilla. So if you turn to Romans 16 and read for me verses 1 through 3, the proof is in the letter. What did he say? I commend unto you Phoebe. Phoebe was a Christian worker in the city of Caesarea, which was on the eastern seaport of Corinth. And read on. I commend unto you Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant. She's a servant of the church. Which is at Sanctified. That ye receive, this is Romans 16 and 1 through 3. Right. Romans 16, verses 1 through 3, to prove that Paul was in the city of Corinth. Because, see, somebody thought, I think we said in the last class that Paul was